Welcome to today's class. I hope you guys had a lovely week. So for today we'll be doing authentication and authorization. Before proceeding, I would like to confirm if you guys can hear me properly. So please, if you can hear me, please can you just drop a yes on the chat? Then we'll proceed with the class. Okay, cool. So we proceed. So before I go in to the class properly, I'll just ask some few questions. How many of us have had time to properly clone the quotes API we've been using all this while and study it? Because if you guys notice the pattern we're following, we're trying to make sure that we keep up with that file that project throughout the course of this training and all. So how many of us have had time to go and study it? Remember, I've always emphasized on the studying will be more of you. How you grow on this course is dependent on how well you study on your own. Okay, cool. So for some have cloned it, that which is good. But have you find time to study it? The terminologies and the keys over there that you don't understand, have you find time to go online and check if it's something you can't recall? So if you have not, please find time to do that. Okay, that is how you go. So without wasting much time, let's proceed. So for today's class, we'll be doing authentication and authorization. Yeah, it's like you're giving people power. You authenticate to make sure something is authentic. Authorize by you giving authority, right? So let's proceed. So I remain Trudy, your host for today. So let's learn together. So I'll be proceeding to the next slide now. So far this is our class 20 already. By now I believe those that are lost would have been found already, hopefully. And I believe you guys are starting to put things together. What software development is all about. It's not just all about writing codes. It's about bringing a good product out there. Okay, so this is class 20. We're almost there. So for those that have been with us up till now, I'll say well done. I know it has not been easy, but well done. So I'll be going to the next slide. A few minutes. Uh, a few minutes, please. I need to do something about this slide. It's more than 2 pages. So, while I'm working on this, probably we'll just discuss a bit. So, probably I'll just use this part to probably take some questions just in case. So, regarding the past class we have had so far, is there anyone still finding one or two issues? Like I say in some of the chats, some people are even having difficulties running the program on their system. So, is anyone experiencing such? I'll just look through the chat quickly while I work on my slide. It's complete here. I'll try and upload again. Yes, the portfolio video. Oh. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. So aside that, can you be more specific? What issues are you guys experiencing? Is there anything in particular that you are finding difficult? Mm, mm. Mhm. Okay. Backend aspects. Hmm. Okay. Portfolio backend aspects. Cloning part of the project. Okay. The cloning should be among the easiest part if I'm not mistaken because it's just a command. The git space clone space the directory of the project. Then don't worry, you get the hang of it in time. Okay. So let's see. Now it's showing just okay. Okay, so let's proceed. Sorry about that. Was trying to get my slide properly uploaded. Okay, so straight into the class. So what will we be covering today? So for today, we'll be looking at what is authentication. Okay, we'll be looking at what is authorization. Why are they important? We'll also be discussing on tokens versus session. Introduction to JWT, which also stands for JSON Web Token. We'll be looking at introduction to OAuth. Then we'll look at JWT versus OAuth. What is the difference? So I'm assuming that some of these terms are not new to some of us here. But instead of asking that, based on the time already spent, we'll just dive in. Okay. So learning objective. By the end of this session, participants will be able to differentiate between authentication and authorization, compare session-based and token-based authentication, understand how DWT works, implement DWT authentication in code, explain what OAuth 2.0 is and how it works, distinguish between DWT and auth, apply security best practice. So, we're in the class now. What is authentication? So, like I usually do, I believe many of us, this is not the first time we have come across the word authentication. Okay. In most cases, when you say you want to confirm, as I'm already saying, want to confirm something is authentic. When you want to confirm, maybe you purchase something from someone is authentic, you're probably checking if it's the original. So, same thing applies with when someone is trying to access your platform. You want to confirm if that person is who he say he is, if that person is supposed to have access to your platform, if that person is properly registered in your platform before performing certain actions. Okay, so that's literally what authentication revolves around. So, going by our definition, authentication is the process of verifying who a user is. Okay, so it's all about what verification, confirming. And if most of us have used platforms like maybe Gmail, I'm assuming everyone here has a Gmail or a mail service, or maybe your Facebook or your Twitter, before you access your account, your personal account, you have to be authenticated. In some cases, you have to provide your email or your password. Some app will expect you to maybe provide your phone number and password. Some will just say, okay, you know what? Let's create what we call username. It doesn't have to be a name, a email or password. So it'll be username and password. But there are even other forms of authentication. So let's go. So authentication answers the question, are you really who you claim to be? That is what we do. So probably when somebody is entering their email and password trying to gain access to their accounts, what the system is doing is to confirm if that person is who he or she claims to be. Without things like authentication, any random person can probably get access to your maybe bank details and do some fraudulent acts. So authentication is very important. Okay. So common methods includes we have username and password. Username can just be maybe a unique name, maybe a tag or something, maybe email, maybe phone number, or maybe even actual username and password. Now we also have biometrics. You have fingerprint, you have face ID, maybe when you're trying to access your phone and all these and forms of authentication. You also have OTP, which is called one-time password. There's some platforms like if you use platforms like what is in the free code camp, the moment you enter your email, all they do is send you a one-time password, the code, of which you will need to go to your email, access that code, then enter it back into the platform before you have access. Okay. So why the last one have a social logins? Almost all app out there now use social logins because it's easier to register people and log in. So for instance, you see yourself for some of us that created our Git accounts for the first time, there is the option of probably signing up with your email, okay, with your Google. There are some platforms you go, like if you are the type that like probably play maybe Candy Crush and all, you have the option of signing up with your Facebook, stuff like that. So those are called what? Social logins. All these things I've mentioned so far revolved around confirming who if the person trying to access an account is who that person says he is. So I'm looking at the question. They say, what about the ones that ask you to match up images or poses? So those ones are just trying to confirm that, like you said, you are not a robot, because they are like call it engines or maybe scripts and stuff that are written to probably try multiple passwords on an account, trying to hack an account. So such process is to make sure that there's actually a human input to solve that puzzle. So that is just a protection to ensure that the person entering this is not probably a script just doing one or two malicious stuff and all. Okay, so we're going to proceed to the next slide. So now remember the topic is what? Authentication and what? Authorization. So now we have discussed what authentication is. Authentication is trying to confirm if you logging in is the right person, verify who you are. Then what does authorization do? So I'm also assuming again a safe assumption that this is not the first time we are hearing of the word authorization. Okay, when you give someone authorization to do something on your behalf, you're giving someone access, you're giving someone privileges to do certain stuff. So, for instance, let me say you have a package that arrives somewhere, maybe a mail service, and you want someone to go and pick it up for you. In some cases, you might need to maybe write a letter saying that I authorize this person to pick this thing. That should be the heading of the letter. So when the person gets to the venue to collect the item, he's presenting that letter, which is a sign of what? Authorization, authorizing the person, giving the person the right to what? To take those items. So going by the definition we have here, authorization is the process of determining what a user is allowed to do. So no, now we have what? Authentication. First, we want to confirm who you are. Is it the right person that is accessing this account? Okay. Now, authorization is saying, okay, let's say you're the right person. Are you allowed to do XYZ? So it answers the question, what are you allowed to access or perform? So if you guys recall the example I've been doing so far, I've mentioned in the past concerning maybe building a school management system where you have the students, you have the staffs, you have the teachers and parents. And I mentioned something like what there are some certain stuff that maybe the admin user should be able to do, maybe the teacher should be able to do, that the student should not be able to do. So, for instance, the teacher should be able to enter scores of all the students under him or her, right? The student shouldn't be able to do that. The student should only be able to view what score he or she got. So that is what authorization, specifying what rules and what privileges that various type of users can have. So I'm going by the example I have on my slide. We have admins can manage user data, all the users in a particular system. A regular user that is not an admin can probably just visit their own profile. Then guests may have what read-only access. It's just like maybe when you open your Facebook, everyone can see the homepage, right? But for you to see things pertaining to you, maybe posts of other people assigned to you, you need to log in to have access. But you're only seeing things concerning you. You are not seeing details from another person's account. The only person that can do that is more of like an admin user. Okay, so there's one thing we need to take note of here, which is the last line I have on my slide. Authorization happens after successful what? Authentication. In other words, the user must have been verified before we think of, okay, what can this person do? So I will take a pause here and look if there's any question for now. No, I will be surprised if I see any question. I'm assuming I've not lost anyone yet. So is there any question so far? Can we proceed? Can I just get one yes and we'll proceed? Is there any question? Can we proceed, guys? Okay. So I guess we can proceed. Yeah, thank you. Let's proceed. So we'll be going to the next slide now. So why are they important? So now, mind you, I'm using the word they here because you cannot separate authentication from authorization, because first you have to verify a user, but verifying the user is not enough. You also have to determine what that user should have access to. So they are both in union. Okay, they work hand in hand. So why are they important? First, protect sensitive data. So there are some data pertaining to you that you don't need it to be accessible to other people. So for instance, probably your bank account details, your BVN, you want to be the only one that have access to it, or probably maybe the admin users in the bank. You don't want any other person to have such access to that, which is why it's essential to verify when you are logging in if you are the right person. Okay. Two, we prevent unauthorized actions. So there are some certain privileges you don't want to give some people based on the system you have designed. So probably, like, I'm still going to use the school system as an example. Probably you are done designing the whole students, teachers goal and all. Then you accidentally created a program that gives the students the ability to edit scores. What do you think will happen to that? Literally, no students will fail again. Students will not be even encouraged to probably study properly, since they can just go and edit their scores. So you prevent unauthorized actions. So for instance, we just created the code stuff, the code API. Supposing somebody just decide to just go there and delete everything there, stuff like that you want to authorize. Okay. So enable role-based access. So like different users have different access. You can set that. It's part of the importance to it. Support secure integration. Okay. Then build trust and compliance. So the thing is this: you don't want to build an app whereby people feel that the moment their details is there, it's easily accessible by anyone. So if I go back, you see stuff like I want you guys to also read through this. There are regulatory bodies that you should have embedded in your system depending on what you are trying to build. So for instance, if you are doing something relating to fintech, you normally see something like this PCI stuff and all. So GDPR is almost for everyone. These are just stuff to make sure that you are not playing with users' data. So each of all these regulatory bodies, it will ensure that you're complying with it. You are not breaking any law. Okay. So let's proceed to the next slide. So I'll try and explain this to the best of my knowledge. We have gotten to that part where I will say, please, if you don't understand anything now, do not cry. Just find time to study more. Okay. So I'll be proceeding now. Okay. So now we are in token session. We are looking at token versus session. You might be asking, we just discussed authorization and authentication. Now we are already in token and session. So I will explain. I will explain a bit what it revolves around before maybe going into the difference. So tokens and session are like ways that you authenticate people. I'll give you a little breakdown. So let's say you enter your email and your password, depending on the kind of setup you have installed. Before now, when we have the days of coding with just pure PHP, we use mainly of what we call session, whereby the moment you log in, we're going to store something in your system, in your browser, your local storage in your browser. I don't know if you guys can access local storage in your browser. If we have time, we'll go through that. So we store something there so that even when you refresh and reload, we can go over there and check for a particular variable to confirm that this particular user is logged in. Don't log the person out. So that is using session. Okay. But the way token works, which we find time to demo today, is for every call you make that is authenticated, you're going to pass what we call an header. Okay. You specify the authorization in an header. For every request you make, passing in a token. So that token will be verified at the back end to make sure that this user trying to access this user trying to access this platform is the right user. So now look at it this way. I will explain it more using this this difference you have over here. Someone is saying they can't hear me. I don't know if if it's so for everyone. I'm assuming. Is anyone still having the same issue? Can you all hear me properly? I'll just look through the question. Okay, so add session can store card items. I'm not sure that's a question for me. Okay, so I think you guys can hear me. So Diamond, I think that is your name. Please check properly on your end, okay? So let's proceed. So now, token versus session. So the thing is, many of all these things might not make more sense to you guys till you find time to practice. But let's go in. So we have separated these two guys in terms of what features. We have session which is stateful, and we have token which is stateless. And I'll explain why is one stateful and why one is stateless. Stateful, like I mentioned, we're already storing something concerning this in the local state, in the local device, like a local storage. I also, in most cases, you also apply this in phones as well. Phones also have local storage, stuff like that. So that if that particular variable is not available, we can say, okay, maybe this particular person access using this app is not authenticated. So I'll give you an instance. There are some app on your phone devices that whether you log out in the next 1 year or let me say 2 months, you log back in, you open the app, you are still logged in. What is happening? It's not automated. It simply means that your login credentials is probably your token. Let me call it your token. Is stored in the local storage of your device. In most cases, if you want to log out of such device, you have to go and clear your app cache, stuff like that, or you clear your app data. So let's proceed. Session is server side. Okay, white tokens is what? Client side. Okay, the client gets to manage the token. Why session itself, depending on what you set, in some cases you hear stuff like Redis using to manage your session or maybe database. If we have time, we'll give an example where we can store all the session. In some devices, your session can be stored via files in some platform, depending on what you define. What you define as of when you create that app. So in terms of scalability, is limited in terms of session because you are storing these things. But in terms of token, since you are not using any memory, it's high. So when you are looking at authentication, session ID is stored in a cookie. I'm assuming this is not the first time you guys are hearing of the word cookie. If it's your first time, please, you can do a little research on it, okay? Why token, like I said, is sent what? In the header request. We'll see an example. Probably when we see an example to make more sense. So let's proceed. Performance, more overhead on server. In terms of token, faster, no server lookup, since you're not even storing it on the server. Security requires CSRF protection. For those that might have played the session in the past, if you are submitting a form, you need to make sure you are putting stuff to do this CSRF protection. You can research on it, so we don't delay more time. Why in terms of token needs secure storage, like you have your HTTP only, you have your cookies, stuff like that. Then in terms of ID, for session is ID for your traditional web app. Why for tokens? You can use it for APIs, you can use it for your SPAs, you can use it for your mobile apps. So key difference, session manages states. Okay. Why in terms of servers, right? Why tokens? For every request made, you must pass that token along. Okay, I see somebody is already helping you guys out. The meaning of CSRF. Still, please find time to research as well. Okay, so let's proceed. Introduction to JWT, JSON Web Token. So, JWT is a URL safe token used to secure transmitted information between parties. So it basically consists of three parts. We have the header, we have the payload, we have the signature. So we have an example of what the JWT looks like. The time we demo this, you guys will get to see this. So you can see the first one that is the header. After the header, we have the dots. All the string you are seeing here, they are just one string. Forget about the arrow and the header. That is just used to show you which part is the header, which part is the payload, and which part is the signature. So you will understand this properly when we demo this in the next slide. Okay. So why use JWT? It's stateless. Stateless authentication, easy to use in APIs, can include custom claims like user role and ID. So JWT in general is more of digital proof of identity and permission. So let's quickly go to the next slide. So for the next slide, we'll just do a little demo. So I have what we want to demo right here on the slide, but I'll be sharing my screen to open my editor so we'll practice it together. So let's proceed with that. Please, I'll be kind of fast, and then I'll take my time to explain a bit when necessary. So please feel free to draw me back when necessary. Okay. So let's proceed. So with that being said, is there any question so far? Have we confused anyone so far? Some people are really feeling attendance. Okay, that is good in a way. So let's proceed. I'll be sharing my screen now. So please let me know when you can see my screen. Okay. So let's see. Okay, I think I need to go here and choose. So I think this is my screen. So okay. So okay. Okay, so I think you guys can still be able to see my screen now. So let me close this. Close folder. So what I'll simply do is this. I'm going to create a folder. I believe we all know what folder is now. Some people call it repository, some call it directory. I'll just call this a DSA tests. That should be okay. Okay. I'm going to open my editor now. Currently it's blank. What I want to do is open the folder I just created. Okay. So let's do that. My desktop. So this is the folder I just created. So mind you, the code I want to write is simply the code we have on our slide already. I'm assuming that by this time, almost everyone should have access to that slide since it's already uploaded on the LMS platform. Okay, so let's proceed. So the first thing I want to do on this slide, if you look through the code, you discover that I used a package called JSON Web Token. So what I'll do first is this. I'm going to open a terminal here. Let me go here. I'm assuming by now you guys are already used to terminals. Okay, so I'll go to CSA tests. Okay, I don't know if you guys can see my screen, but you should be able to see my screen is big. So I'll just make this big a bit.
What's that? Let me see.
Windows, we're not finishing. Let's proceed with that. I think for now it's okay. So let's proceed. So I just want to do this. I'm in the folder now. I'm going to do npm init. I'm going to ask me basic question. For the case of this test, I'm just going to press enter for everything. I'm not setting any description. Yes, my entry point, I want it to be index.js is yes. So if you notice already, it created this file for me. Let me confirm to make sure we are all following. Hold on. Yes, I'm using git bash. So please, let's say I should not be too fast. I've not done anything yet. Hope we all agree. So the only thing I did was what git npm init, so that it can help me create this file. If you don't want to do this with npm init, you can simply just type all of this yourself. But doing it with npm init is more easier. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is to install that package I say I'm going to use. Don't forget. So the package, I'm going to confirm the name of the package now. So the package name is JSON Web Token. So I'm going to do something like npm install JSON Web Token. Right? Yeah. So we wait a bit, shouldn't take long. So it's done. So we have one package, everything package install, blah blah. So if you go to this now, you see that dependency, we now have what JSON Web Token. So I'm going to create my index file now. Index, I'll be using JavaScript for this. So we have, because the example I have is just a simple JavaScript stuff. Okay. So remember what I told you guys before now. The language is just a syntax. So try and get more used to as much as you can. By the time you understand the full logic of programming, then you know that the language is just a syntax. Okay. So the first thing I'm doing is importing this guy, which is what I'm going to be using for the what? For creating the web token, the token itself. So now for this token, what I want to tokenize, I want to create a user object. The user should contain an ID of 1, like my example, gold. You can specify more things, which is the beauty of this JSON web token. You can tokenize this and you send it back. Then what your server needs to do is to just decode it and make use of what is inside of it. So I'm going to go next. Then the next I want to do is to create a secret. So when using your JWT, you need to specify a secret. Okay. So I use secret. Over here I have my super secrets. It can be anything you want, but just make sure that whatever you use, you're going to keep it consistent. If not, you won't have access to your app again. You need to create another token. Okay. I'm going to do constant token equals to JWT dot sign is a function of JWT. It takes the payload you want to sign. You want to what? Encrypt. The payload I want to encrypt is this. I've already set it, the user object. The secret is this, which will be used for it, for the buffer. Then I specify how long I want this to expire. So this can be used when by maybe you want to create a token whereby after a certain time you want the user to be automatically logged out. In that case, you want to set an expired, and it's advisable you do that. Except for we are building platforms whereby maybe there's nothing really confidential that will be done in it. Then you can probably just set it forever, or you won't set this. But I advise you, please try to set this depending on what you are trying to build. So I just hope I'm not too fast. I think this is as slow as I can get. It's literally what we have. So all I'm going to do now is to console.log. Then we have the token. So we'll stop here for now. So we just have basically 5 lines if I'm to take up this space. So the first thing we're doing is importing this particular JSON web token. Mind you, this is just one type of import. I think you guys have done modular stuff already. Then the next thing we're doing is what? Creating a user object. This is an object. You know why it's an object now? It has the key and the ID and it's covered with these curly braces, right? Then the next thing we're also doing now is what? Is creating a secret, right? That will be used to what? To encode your what? Your object, the payload. So we also call this object a payload. So don't be confused about payload. Payload is most likely what comes with a request in most cases. So when you hear payload, please don't be confused. So I don't know if you guys can see my screen properly. I'm getting messages like increase my screen. I think this is clear enough a bit, except you're using a phone to access this. Okay. So let's proceed. So the next thing we have is what? The token, creating the token. And how do I do that? I call your JWT. I call the sign-in function, which takes a what? A payload. My payload in this case, the request, the object I'm sending that I'm encoding in this case is what? The user object. So I pass it here. That doesn't mean I cannot rename this thing to another name. But this is what I tend to use, okay? Then I pass the secrets, which will be used. Remember what I said about secrets. When you want to decode this thing, you're also going to need that same secret. So keep your secret properly, okay? Then I specified when this thing should expire. And you guys are going to see how that works. Then I console.log. I want to see what I've done so far. So let's run this. Let me just open the terminal here. I'm thinking it to be bigger here. I'm going to open the terminal here. So I think this one will be a bit bigger for you guys. I'm assuming. So to run this, I'm just going to do my node. Hope you guys still remember your node commands. Node index.js. Okay. Then I press enter. So I don't know if you guys can see my screen now. So if you see what I have, we have the JWT token, which is this string I wrote. Now look at the token. We have this first part. If you recall, I said the token is made up of what? 3 parts, right? The 3 parts are what? The header, the payload, and what? The signature. So from this E to this 9 is what? The header, right? Then from this other E down to the next dot of F9, this F9 over here is what? The payload. While this S to this C is what? The signature. So in other words, if I'm to use this as my login, if I want to probably use this as my login for every request, I'm expecting for every request hitting my server, whoever is consuming my API, I'm expecting the person to always pass this token, whichever token the person gets, to always pass the token in his header. Maybe bearer, or there are different types of header. You can see that in your Postman. Maybe as a bearer or stuff. In most cases, bearer. So you pass it and you run. If you don't pass it, I'll tell you you are not authorized. Okay, somebody say the code run. It's like you are praying for the code not to run. I've catch one of the people that are affecting me. So let's proceed. So now we have done the first part of what? Encoding. So now let's decode. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to comment this part out. Let me run this again. If I run this, since I've removed the console log, nothing will show, right? Because it's the console log that is outputting stuff. So the next thing I'm going to type now is the other parts of the code on the slide, which is what? The decoding part. So what am I going to do now? I'm going to start with a try. So, and I will explain. I start with a try catch. So anything you know is going to throw you error, and you don't want to crash your app. You don't want your app to crash. Please, you have to surround it with a what? A try catch. That is how you handle errors. Because you don't want people using your platform and they keep on reaching out, the app has crashed. Because that is what will happen. If it's a mobile app and something throws an error and you're not catching it, the app is going to crash like this. It's going to crash. Probably the app will just exit. So, but when you handle it with stuff like try catch, you can determine what will happen depending on the kind of errors. Okay, so this JWT normally throws an error. This JWT verify that we are going to use now. So let's decode first of all. Let me just type this before I talk too much. So I'm going to decode now. I call the JWT again. I verify. What am I verifying? The token, then the secrets. So take note, the token I'm making reference to is the token I created at line 4. The secret is still the same secret I created at where? At line 3. Okay. So now the next I'm going to do is console log decoded. So I'm going to do console.log. Let's see, console.log. Okay, we use console.l. That's the work. Console.log will also still work. So invalid token. Then the error message. So now let's run this. I just hope I'm not too fast. I'm not too fast, hopefully, please. I'm not too fast. So yeah, I'm no exception given. So I'm looking through the comments now. The try catch, okay. In Python is try except, yeah. That's not bad, that's good. So let's proceed. So the same way I'm gonna do what? Notch. Let me just press up to get the last command I ran. So look at what is happening. You can see the decoded. Mind you, the only thing we are passing is what? The user object. And we are passing what? Expired at. Okay. So if you convert this time, let me not do this. Let me just allow you guys play through. What do you think this guy is and this guy is? But obviously you should know that this is not the same object to pass. This is based on this. So now what I'm going to do now, I'm going to do something now. I'm going to comment this guy. I'm going to comment this guy. Idea window users. Windows. I'm going to comment this guy. I'm going to create the token with this. With one secret. No need to comment it. What I'll do is this. I'm going to change the secret here. I will try using a string called secrets to see if I can still access the token. Let's see what happens. So let's go. So I get what? Invalid token, invalid signature. Why? Because the secret, my super secret, is different from what? Secrets. The only time this will work is probably when I type my super secret here. That's if I'm not using the variable name I defined here. Then I go back there and I do this. Now it runs. So if you understand everything I've done so far, you're already getting the grasp of what authentication is all about. So I will say well done for now. So I'll stop sharing for now and we'll go back to our slide for a bit. So with that being said, is there any question so far? Is there anyone that is lost? I'm assuming no one is lost. I've not lost anyone yet, which is a good thing. So we have played through this example, okay? That shows us how DWT works. The first thing we did was to import the package. So one thing I want to also mention, like you can see from the charts, we are playing with JavaScript, people are playing with other languages. There's nothing enforcing you to make sure that you do it exactly the way we do it. So me, I don't have an issue with people going online or probably employing different tools to get things done. Where I have a problem is when you don't take your time to understand what is happening. So most of the problems you are going to be solving, there are high chances that someone has solved it, especially when you use stuff like Is it Stack Overflow and stuff like that? So maybe you are stuck somewhere and go and search. Most of the errors you may encounter, someone else might have encountered such errors. So what I expect of you is not just to go there and blindly copy. As you are taking these solutions, you are taking your time to understand everything line for line, to ask yourself, what does this line mean? What is this person trying to do? That way you grow. Okay? So please, I will emphasize again, we all need to try to make sure that we learn to grow on our own. So we'll be proceeding to the next slide now. I will ask again, is there any question? I think I'll just take this time and answer some questions. Because we will still have time to go back to our, we still have something to do concerning our quotes. So is there any question? It's like the chat is a bit quiet today. So is it safe to say you guys understand everything? Is there any question? I'm going through the chats. I'll do that for a while, then we'll continue with the class. For those that have not probably had time, this is an opportunity for you to also try and run this on your own to see if you can get it working. Okay, it's not difficult, don't be scared. So I'll go through to see if there's any question. If there's none in the next maybe a minute or two, I will just proceed with the class. So, sir, would we have to provide the DWT as part of a GET API? So that is a very good question. So the thing is this. I will say, yeah, you are not providing the DWT. What you are providing is more of a token, okay? This token that we just play with. But the thing you want to ask yourself is this. The funny thing is, this question you're asking me is for you to answer, and I will explain. When you are designing a platform, you ask yourself, what do I want people to, before they can access, do they need to be logged in? Do they need to be authenticated? So there's possibility probably you build a portfolio website in such a site and maybe create routes and endpoints for it. You might not need authentication because you want your app to be easily accessible by everyone. So for instance, let me see if I can give a good example. Mail. Let me say your Gmail. Everyone can just go to Gmail and type Gmail and they view it. They can go to the help, they can go to the resources, right? But for a particular user to access his or her inbox, he or she needs to what? To log in. And that is where either your DWT or your session or your tokens and all, that is where it comes in. So the thing is, the only routes, I'm using the word routes again, I'm assuming you guys are used to routes, where we talked of the get, post, patch, and all different routes depending on what you're trying to achieve. The only routes you are protecting, because it's a protection, the only routes you are protecting, the only routes you want people to be authorized before they access are routes you have defined. Are probably routes you might need maybe the user details or something like that. So for instance, let me say somebody wants to check his or her profile. How do you know that person if that person is not logged in? Okay, for stuff like that, you want to protect it with what? Request for token, request for authorization. That way you can know who is asking for his or her profile. So it's dependent on what you are trying to achieve. Okay, so that is a very good question. So is there any other question? I'll be scrolling back a bit to see if there's any question pertaining to all of this. So far, I think everyone was on the same page. So that is good. Is there any other question? Speak now or forever hold. So somebody say not too good with phones. I don't know. I don't know what that question is pertaining to. I assume that is not from me. If that is from me, please provide more clarity. Okay. I'm looking through the questions. Something Jason Suarez and not something like fries. That is not a question. CSRF inbuilt in Django. Yeah, it's also inbuilt in Laravel, depending on what you're trying to achieve. Laravel is a PHP framework, which is what I still use till today. So session, session. Okay. So I think at this point, I'm assuming that we are all on. So okay, I think I see a question now. Okay. So I see two questions now. Can HTTP can the HTTP be okay? So can the HTTP be used for backend be used to generate the token? I'm careful not to answer this question because it's not too direct. Can the HTTP? How do you use HTTP? Mind you, HTTP is just a protocol. So, or are you saying that can we use the same URL we have our maybe front end hosted also for the back end? If that is what you are saying, of course, that is possible, depending on how you structure your program. So, for instance, now this is me assuming I understand your question. So, let me say, if you are using an API system, you might want to probably host the API in a subdomain. Maybe you want to call it api.get or something, api.mydomain.com. Then maybe you want to host the website on the main domain for something like that. Because in most cases, your API might be hosting another server while your stuff, what is it? Your front end might be hosted also on another server, depending on how you structure it. But you can also use platforms like you mentioned, the Dango and the Laravel that enables you to host everything on same server. But in most cases like that, in some cases, it's more of session based. What that means is once you log in, you will literally see maybe you're logging something stored in a database or somewhere around there, session based, depending on what you're trying to achieve. So I see, sir, please, what caused failed verification? So if you are referring to the code we just ran now, is in this case, it's more of what invalid secret, right? But if you are looking at field verification generally, most likely maybe the password doesn't tally, or maybe the email address or whatever doesn't tally. And if you notice platforms nowadays, before now we have platforms that will tell you the password you entered is invalid. The what that tells malicious guys is that, oh, the email is valid then. So let's continuously try new password to see how we can hack this account. So in most cases, what you see now is what? Invalid credential. You are not authorized. They are not even telling you whether the email is valid or the password is valid, stuff like that. So my final is the token only for APIs or general. So you can use the tokens is from what is gotten. Yeah. Let me see I can answer that question. The token is generated from what? From your API, right? Your API generates the whole token structure for you upon logging in, right? But this token, you can use it for a web app. Probably you're building your web app with maybe React, Vue, or whichever Angular, whichever front-end technology you have out there on Next.js. So it can be consumed anywhere, be it mobile, be it front-end, be it web. Okay. The only one that has restrictions is when you use stuff like what session. Session is mainly on web browsers. Okay. So I'm looking at it. I think it's 8 now. When we come back, I will answer the rest of the questions. For the time being, please feel free to add more questions while we take our attendance. Thank you. Okay. Welcome back, guys. So, I will just quickly go through the questions. So, I think I stopped at my final. How are we going to do so? So, I stopped at when we were discussing what we call failed verification. So, failed verification is most likely you are not entering the right data. Probably the data as of the point of registration you entered is different from what you are using to log in, stuff like that. So that is, it doesn't even pertain to dot authorization. Failed verification means we cannot verify you. The system cannot verify the details you are entering. Okay. So is token only used for APIs? I think I've answered that already, if I'm not mistaken. No, sir. The HTTP JS framework we use for the quote API. Used for backend. You also use it. Yeah, you can. If that is what I make reference to, Peter, you can. So why? So I think I saw a question concerning. I can't see that question now, but let me just go straight to this one I'm seeing here. So where does KYC authorization comes in? Is it also a typical a type of authorization, or is it different? So first of all, you ask to say what is the full meaning of KYC? So I think it's more of a banking term, but now it's generalized, not just a banking term. It's called know your customer. Okay, so you want to know the people using your system. So if you see KYC, it's more of like maybe verifying your address. If in a banking system, depending on the level of KYC you have entered, will determine the amount of transaction you can do. So that is not authentication; it is more of what authorization based on the details you have set to determine what you should have access to. So that's also a type of authorization. Okay. So, sir, where can we classify MFA? MFA stands for multi-factor authentication, whereby you are just joining maybe one or two authentication. So, for instance, after you log in and enter your password, we're also asking you to probably go and check your mail to enter the token sent to you. So it's still under a form of authentication. You are still on authentication when you're looking at that. It's various steps put in place to ensure that even if the person have access to your email, your password, probably does not have access to your email, where we'll be sending a code to. Okay, so it's still under authentication. Just that you're combining different types of authentication now, different methods of authentication. So, how do we get the software you just installed? Okay, I'm trying to ask myself which software I'm making reference to, but let me try. I believe you can access VS Code if that is one of the software I'm making reference to. You can download that. The terminal I used before now is Git Bash. You can easily get that if you are installing Git. Then, if you are making reference to the package I use, which is a JSON Web Token, all you need to do is on the project, on the folder, make sure you have CD into that folder. CD should be used to, you should be used to it now. CD simply means what? Change directly. Make sure you are there. Then all you simply need to do is what? Run npm install JSON Web Token. Okay. So I think how do we structure? So I'm looking at the question again. This from Emmanuel. How do we structure for user getting blocked for trying out invalid passcode or OTP? Are there a coding? So I think if I get this correctly, probably you are looking at a system whereby after you have entered maybe the password three wrong time. Let's say after three trials, you want to probably block that person till you reach out to the admin. So that one is left for you, Emmanuel. So the logic behind that is probably is more of setting a counter. Maybe you want to store that counter variable in the DB or maybe in a Redis server or something. You are storing how many times this person have tried. So maybe you want to set your limit to three. He tried the first one, you store it as one. He tried the second one, failed two. Then anytime it's successful, you reset it to zero. Then maybe by the time it gets to three and it's unsuccessful, then you can perform the actions to probably block the user. Maybe you will set a particular colon that will determine if user is active or not, or maybe if the user is blocked or not. I believe this little words of mine should be able to guide you. So by the time you start practicing, I believe you get the hang of it. So I think I've done a lot of questions for now. If you have any more questions, feel free to drop it. I'll be looking at it later. So for now, let's dive right into the class. So we just discussed on JWT Web Token. And we just did the simple stuff, not pertaining to a project, but we'll be looking at the project base later. So the next thing we want to look at is OAuth, OAuth, Open Authorization. And I'm assuming you guys are not new to this, especially for those that have probably tried signing in with, probably you get a platform. You ask yourself, please, I don't have time to fill the registration form. You saw the option of maybe signing in with Gmail or GitHub or Facebook. You just click on it and it asks you to log into your Gmail. You log in and it asks you, do you want to authorize this app? You authorize the app and you are in. You are using what we call OAuth 2.0. Let me call it 2.0. OAuth 2.0. Okay. So I share this in terms of role and description. So resource owner, the user who owns the data. So in most cases, in cases like that, is the user that have that account maybe in Google or maybe Facebook or GitHub, as the case may be, is the one giving access to the platform is trying to sign into, because they're going to ask for you to log in into those platform. Then the platform sends a code, and that is all. So clients, the app requesting the access. So in this case, let's say, like the example I have here, Spotify. In another case, it might be another app that enables what social login, maybe Twitter or maybe your, which other one can I think of? Maybe your Telegram or stuff like that. But in this case, Spotify. So Spotify is trying to gain access to your data, right? And you don't want to go through the step of what signing up, filling all the XYZ details. You're like, you know what? Instead of me doing this, you can go and take the data from Gmail. I have all these basic data you're asking for in Gmail. Okay, so you go over there. Gmail asks you for your password. Are you sure you trust these people? You want to give them access? You have the option of saying yes or no. I'm assuming almost everyone must have done something like this without knowing that you're already doing what we call open authorization. So the difference in this is the Spotify that we're talking of here does not even have access to you are not doing the authorization on Spotify end. You are doing the authorization on what? On your Google or on your Facebook. Then what they will do is what? Issue a token that will be spent back to Spotify. So this is me assuming that we are using Spotify in this case. The client can be any service that integrates what social logins and all. Okay. So resource server hosting the protected data. So in this case now, Google, where is the data hosted? Still within Google, maybe Google API or something, stuff like that. So your data is in what? In a separate server, a third party. You are trying to gain access to what? To another app, and you don't want to log in. What do? You can specify, maybe use Google. You log into your Google sends a token. You might not be seeing it. If you are using a web browser, anytime you are doing that, try and look at the address, the web address, what is happening. It might not make sense to you, but you should see one or two things. It sends something back to the client, in this case Spotify, and you have access to Spotify without going through the steps of filling just XYZ details and all. Okay, so let's proceed to the next slide. So OAuth. This is just a basic simplified flow. So let me say you're trying to log in Spotify, just like I've mentioned, okay? The user clicks login with Google. Then the apps redirect you towards Google Authentication Server, Then the user log in first. After logging in, you now want to give consent that yes, and you can allow this app have access, right? The Google returns what we call an authorization code back to the app. Now the app exchanges that code for what? Access token. Mind you need token, right? There's always a token. Now the app uses the token to access the what? The user data. So it's like that. So why OAuth matters? Keep user credentials safe. Now you're not scared of maybe I'm scared of creating an account with these guys. You're not creating an account, you are only using authentication based on an account I've created on another service like Google. If in the future you don't want to probably use Google, you don't want to use Facebook, there's a place where you can go and remove all those authorization and you are done. Okay, it's as simple as that. Then enables third-party integration. Okay, let user control what data is shared. After all, they're going to ask permission. Do you want this app to have access to this? You have control over it, right? Then the widely used ones that almost all of us here should be familiar with is, like I've mentioned in Google so far, right? We have Google, we have Facebook, we have GitHub, we have other social platforms, but I think these are the popular ones for now. So, I'll look through the questions so far. So, OAuth is much better than framework methodologies. I'm not yet to answer which one is better and which one is not better, but it's what it is. So, but the thing is this: these things might look easy to you, but you need to ask yourself, what are the steps taken to do such integration? Which should be an assignment for you guys. Ask yourself, how can I create an app and give people the ability to log in via their Google accounts? We'll be showing you guys how to do the whole Google stuff, right? The whole normal login stuff, just something basic. Then you guys can take it a step further to how can I do OAuth? So mind you, the way each of the different OAuths will have their own API documentation. Okay, you will need to check how does Google do their own, how does Facebook do their own. You have to integrate each one of them one by one. Don't think the moment you are done with one, automatically you have Google, Facebook, and GitHub. You need to do them one by one. Okay, then you can then take a step further to authorize people based on certain rules and all. So let's leave that. So I'll be going to the next slide. So JWT versus OAuth. What is the difference? So I separated this in terms of what features. So we have what it is, the purpose, scope, how it is used, self-contained, common use. So let's go. So JWT is a token format, right? By the time you log in, a token is created. Now that token, you use that token for every subsequent request. Why OAuth is more of like what authorization. First, you log in on the third party like Google. Google gives an authorization code, then that code is exchanged for a token, stuff like that. So it's authorization protocol, while the other one is what? Token format. So purpose for JWT securely transmit user info. Because like you guys saying, the token we just created, it will be difficult for you to read what is actually there except you have access to the words, to the secret. That is why you should keep your secret safe. Your secret is safe. You keep your secret safe. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay. Then OAuth grants third parties app limited access. So as of the point your app is you are giving permissions to any app, you get to see what this app will have access to. You will see it listed there. So maybe the next time you grant access to an external app, try and look through properly. What access are you giving? What are the permissions you are giving this app? So with such means you can control what you can decide, okay, I'm cool with this. But if you are doing straight up JWT, the form we are giving you, you must fill everything. Stuff like that. How is it used? JWT is sent by clients to prove identity. Like I said, for every call, either will be it maybe from the front end or from the mobile app or maybe web app or mobile app, you must always send that token because it's based off of that token we're going to determine who is the user logging in, right? Why for OAuth, is used to what? Obtain access token. Simple. So self-contained. Yes. Contain user claims. No. So for instance, the token we just created, if you recall, we embedded what we call an ID. We also embedded what we call role inside that token. We can embed more data there. Maybe the username. We don't want to fetch name every time the person log in. We want to get that data from the token. Depending on your use case, you can embed more data inside the token. But access token, you can't embed any data. The moment that token is expired, is no longer in use, you always have what we call a refresh token that you can use to gain another access token. When you integrate this, you will get the hang of it. So common use: login system, APIs, OAuth, login with Google, third-party access, stuff like that. So in simple term, you can see JWT what? As an ID card, something you need to show before you get access. Why OAuth is the process of getting access to someone else's building. Just take your time to look at this. Let it make meaning to you. Okay. So I'll be looking at best practices now. Security best practice. Mm, sorry. Yeah. So I'm looking at security best practice. So security best practice: never store JWT in local storage if SSS is a risk. Now the question I will ask you: what do you think S cross S is it XSS is? That is for you to answer. I'll be looking at the chat. Then the next one: use HTTPS always, not HTTP. HTTPS. Try. You can get some. If you are setting up a server, it's very easy for you to get HTTPS. You can probably use less encrypt if you don't use the paid version at all. Uh, use refresh token securely, because mind you, your refresh token, if you are using OAuth, is what you will need to always get a new access token. So keep it safe. So avoid putting sensitive data in JWT payloads. So you see the way I could put ID and which other thing again the way add there. We put ID and we put a role. The fact that you can add anything as an object as a payload for JWT still means that it's left for you to ensure that the data you're passing there is not sensitive. And you don't want to put things like password there. You don't want to put things like password there. Okay. So with that being said, but what we're going to do now is just have a little question and answer. Then after that, we're going to jump to our code base. We're going to look at the API, the quote structure we've been using ever since. We're going to look at how to set up login, your basic JWT. So we have something already set up there. I'm just going to explain everything to you guys. If you guys can go ahead and update your repo by pulling, you do git pull, you will get it. So somebody is asking which one is refresh token. So the thing is, once you are using something like OAuth, you always get two tokens. Mind you, OAuth is supposed to return what? Access token to what? To the user. For instance, let's say Spotify is you are trying to log into Spotify via your Gmail, right? By the time you get to your Spotify, it redirects you to your Gmail and you grant access. Your Gmail is sending Spotify both your access token and what we call your access code and reset token. Okay. So the reset token is used in cases whereby the access token expires. The reset token is used to request for another access token. That's why they call it the refresh token. So anytime it expires, automatically Spotify can use that refresh token to demand another fresh access token. So it might not make sense, but please find your time to understand it. So now let's go through the quiz. What does JWT stand for? We'll be looking for, is it A, Java Web Token? Is it B, JSON Web Token? C, is it JavaScript Web Token? So the answer is We'll look if anybody has any contrary answer. So far, I think we're on the same page. So we have what? B, which is the right answer. JSON Web Token. Okay. I'm tempted to clap for you guys, but don't worry. Let's move on. So the next one. What is the purpose of OAuth? Is it A, authenticate a user? Is it B, authorize third-party access? So number 2, I have some people saying A, I have some people saying B. So what do you guys think is the answer? So I'm looking through the charts. Since we're already having conflicting answers, I will wait a bit to make sure that we are all on the same page. Okay. So I think I've waited enough. So in this case, I think I'll just say the highest number of votes wins. So we have B, 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 B. It's okay. It's okay. I think that here was a mistake. So it's what? B. So where should we store JWT for security? This one, I know is going to confuse a lot of people. Is it A, B, or C for number 3? Do we store it? Where do you think it's safe to store it? Is it safe to store it on local storage? Is it safe to store it on session storage? Or in HTTP only cookies? So we're looking at number 3 now. So let's move on to number 3. So have I all agreed that number 1 answer is B? Number 2 answer is B as well. Number 3 answer, what is number 3? What is the answer? People are going to fight a lot for this one. So I think I'll make it more interesting. As you are telling me A, or as you are telling me B, as you are telling me C, I need you to specify why. Why A? Why do you think it's A? Why do you think it's A? Can you give me a reason why do you think it's A? So now I'm seeing some C's now. I see some A now. So why do you think it's A? Why do you think it's B? Why do you think it's C? Let's get a reason for that. Okay? So that it's not just a guess game for everyone. Why is it A? Why is it B? Why is it C? Okay. So I think people are just not ready to give us reasons. So since you will not give me any reason, even me too will not give any reason. So the thing is, I already mentioned stuff like this, you don't want to store it on local storage, right? Because local storage can be easily accessed. For instance, if anything is stored in your local storage, I can easily probably pick up your system. Say, please, can I do 1 or 2 quickly with your system? I can go to probably open your inspect, go to your local storage, and I can see everything accessed there. And if you have your token stored there, I can simply just copy your token and make a request on your behalf. So you don't want to store it on your local storage. You also don't want to store it on your session. In fact, JWT doesn't work as a session storage, right? Session is different. JWT is more about tokens. So that leaves us with the last one, which is what? HTTP only cookies. So go and check what cookies is all about. Go and check what cookies. So the answer to this is what? C. So for you to get a proper understanding why it's C, you need to know what cookies are. So I will advise you to research on what cookies is all about. Okay? So the next thing we're going to do now is to look at our code base. So please, for those of us that have access to, that have put the repo, the basic API, please go ahead and do git pull. Open it in your terminal and do git pull. Okay, so I'm referring to the DSA basic API. Though you see the same thing when you open the one that says DSA quote API, but please, I'm referring to DSA basic API, because the next steps I'm going to do till the end of the class is to share my screen. Then I'm going to take my time to explain most of the parts I can. Uh, most of the parts I can. So I see a question on the chat. Somebody should answer that. Git. Git what? Okay, I say Git pull. Git pull. I thought you are asking what Git means. So go to the code repo and do git space pull git pull. Or Chico. I think that's for you. So everyone go and do git pull. If you notice any change, let me know. I'm assuming almost everyone should have done this now. You save it to your project and you do git pull. So I'm going to be sharing my screen now. I will be on this screen till we are done. Then I think that will be that. So let me know when you can see my screen. So I see your question. So HTTPS would be preferable, but if you have HTTP, it's still better compared to the options I have. So I gave you guys three options. If I'm to give you maybe HTTP and HTTPS, the most encouraged one will be more of HTTPS. Okay, so don't let it confuse you. So, and I think cookies is more of, you find cookies more in HTTPS if I'm not mistaken. So just research on it. I really can't picture that now. So I'm in my repo. I'm going to see. Yeah, you guys can see my screen now. This is my terminal. I'm leaving the data access test of we just did. I'll do ls. I'm going to enter inside my DSA basic listing. Okay. I don't know if you guys can, yeah, you guys should be able to see my screen. Then the command I ask you to run is gate pull. So as you can see, there are no changes there. So those of us using phone, at this point I will say sorry, please, you can find time later to use your system. Please get a system or borrow one or something. As of the beginning of this class, I already mentioned that to get the best out of it, we should try and use the system. The spec doesn't really matter as far as it's the system. We are not doing anything that will involve you getting a very high sophisticated system at all. Just make sure it's a system. Okay, so find time. For now, you can follow through the class and you can practice later. So I've done git pull. So there's a new branch called add login. Okay, the origin branch. Okay. So I'm going to go to the code base now. I'm going to open that in my VS Code. We don't need these guys again. We are done playing with it. I don't need this terminal as well. I'm going to go to this. I'm going to open folder. So the folder is on my desktop. I'm going to select that and open. Okay. So let me just close everything. Let me just give you guys a hang of this. For those of us pulling this project for the first time, let me collapse this. There's possibility that when you pull this project, you will not see anything in your source. You will see only source. You can see git ignore. You will see package or JSON. You will see this readme, this and this. But you see everything specified in your git ignore, like node module, right? Like dist distributed folder, like file ending with .qodo, like your .env file where you be specifying your variables, right? You will not see them. So The first thing you want to do is, by the time you get all this, just to ensure that you have your package or JSON, you check to see the packages and all. Okay, you can see JSON web token, you can see this. In this case, also using Express. I'll try as much as possible to explain as much as I can. The first thing you want to do, anytime you pull a project that has npm, just run npm install. npm install. The moment you do that, it's going to install all the dependencies, that is packages that are specified in your dependency section and also in your dev section as well. All the packages installed on the project is going to install it. Then you will see this node module folder. If you notice, the folder name is grayed out because it's not part of your push. That is the first thing you want to do, because there's possibility that you will do this and probably when I say run the project, you tell me, the project is not running on my system, because you have not done the first step, which is what? To install the packages. Hope I've not lost anybody. I'm assuming I've not lost anybody. After doing that, depending on the setup of the project, if I go to the package and I'm seeing something .env, I already know that this package will require a file called .env. So in some organizations that probably they have one or multiple people running using a particular project, a .env is used to keep constant variables and all, like credentials, stuff like that. Okay, your .env, they will create another file called .env.local, because they know that they cannot push .env. So it's left of you to go always to go and check your .env.local or any name they give it to copy the new set of variables they have there. If not, your app will break. I just hope I'm not confused anyone. So in my .env, we have the database stuff, instance and all. I think this was shared already. I'm assuming it was shared. So I think I'll just go straight to the project and explain. So when you have done all this command I've mentioned, you can go through the readme, right? That is, if the person that set it up is as godly as this person that gives you, that have already specified everything for you here. If not, it's left for you to try and navigate the project yourself. So already I'm seeing some API stuff and all. It's already telling me stuff I need to do to run it. This is because the person that worked on this, took his time to make sure that he set up all these things so that it's easy for you to run the project. Okay, so let's go. The next place I will be going to. So we don't have anything to do here. You don't really need to do anything here. This is more for test, but you can ignore that. This one is just setting some config on how you want to run your project, but it should always be there. It's more of like a template and all. But I will just dive straight up to the source, which is where my code is. So if I'm new to this project and I don't even know where I'm going, the first place I want to go to is index. It's just like when you are creating in an HTML file or something and all. You most likely want to name the first file index.html, something like that, the entry point. So same with almost all packages, be it Laravel, be it Node or whatever, look for index.js. So then from your index.js or whatever, or index.ts or stuff, or index.php, depending on the extension name, that will help you guide you to the next place you are going in most cases. Yeah, please don't come back and fight me that I looked at index and it's not helping me. In some cases, experience will help you know how to navigate projects. Okay, so I'm going to click on index.ts. So already on my index.ts, I'll just read through what I have here. I have this reflect metadata. I believe I can over on it. I think it's just reflecting more of metadata. I'll just focus on this app source. So the app source is already telling, I'm seeing app source from config database. So if you are using stuff like virtual, yeah, Peter, I can't help you. If you are using stuff like this, you can simply hold your command and click on the name. It will take you to where that file is defined. Okay, so already I'm seeing that this file has more of database configuration, Postgres. In this case, we're using Postgres. So meaning if you have to even create another database source, you can easily define it here. In summary, there's no more to use Postgres. It's left on you. You can decide to use Postgres or MySQL. That is dependent on you. You just need to know how to configure them. So over here you have the type, host, port, username, password, and all. You are telling the same process.env, telling you where to go and get it on env file. If it's not available, which is this sign, you can use the default one. Okay, so let's go back to index. So under the index, the person that even worked on this, which is our tutors before me, they took that time to ensure that they've already specified in comments the endpoints that are available. Like I said before now, there's possibility that the people you will work with, they don't like comments. Even if it's a good thing, at least you are seeing how we are trying to make sure that you get everything well structured for you. You make it an habit. So let's move quickly. We don't have much time. So this is the portal that is going to be running the project. We have constant code service. We have been playing with codes before now, right? The only thing we introduce new is more of the words, the user service. Let me quickly go to the code service and see. So I'm just going to hold command and click on it. So over here we have export codes. He has a constructor, read only. He has functions that gives you the ability to get all codes, get codes by ID, get random codes. I believe you guys are used to this. You can find time to play through this. Okay, but I won't waste time on this. My focus is more on the user service. So I'm going to open user service. So user service.cs. So let's play through the user service. So on the user service, we have registration, right? On the registration, look at what we are taking. We are looking for what? Email. I'm just going to explain the code base for you guys. When you pull, you can understand more, and there are comments to help you. Okay, so we have the register takes 1, 2, 3. It takes 4 parameters. It takes an email, which should be a string. Remember, this is TypeScript. This is a type. It takes a username, which should be what? A string. It takes a password, which should be what? A string. Then it takes a rule, but which should be of type user rule. So now this user rule is in capital letter, meaning there's a place to define what user rule should be. So I'm going to click on this command and click on this. So look at what user role should look like. User role should have what? This or this. So meaning if you are passing user role, you need to specify if it's a user you are creating or what? Admin. I just hope I've not lost anybody. But let's move on. So the registration process, what is the first thing they do? We'll check if the user is existing. You don't want to create an account for somebody that is already existing. In fact, it's going to throw an error, especially when you specify that all the email in the database should be what? Unique. So if you try to enter an email that is existing already, it will throw an error. So the first thing we are doing is looking out for such errors so that we can manage it properly. Okay, so look at it now. So it's going to call user find one. So you are finding where it's either the email they enter is available or the username they enter is already in the system. If this user exists, we are throwing an error. So we are saying throw new error here, meaning it will be catched somewhere. But let's move on. We are throwing an error, and this error should read what? User with this email or username already exists. Okay? But if the email address or the username entered is not in our system, we'll go ahead and what? And create the user. So on creating the user, we specify the email, username, password. Then what do we do again? On the role part, we now check depending on what the person entered. If the person specified admin, is an admin. If the person does not specify anything or it does not specify admin, automatically we know that this is a normal user. So once this is done, we go ahead and save, right? Then the next thing we do is go ahead and generate a token. So now one thing you should learn to play with, you see the way I'm always holding command. Now I'm seeing this dot generate token, meaning there's a function that is defined to generate token. And this is telling me that this function is either here or we have imported everything here. So what I will simply do is just hold command, hold your control on window key and click this. This is a function that does generate token. I hope you guys still remember your JWT sign. Look at it here. So what are we doing with this token? We are collecting the user ID, the email address, the username, the role. This is the object we are passing, the payload. Then we are passing our JWT secrets. So now where is our JWT secrets? Let's see. I'm going to do over it. Is a string. Where is it defined? You can see that you can set your special JWT token in your env file. If it's not specified on your env file, it's going to use the default one, which is your secret key. So what you are trying to achieve here is if everybody sets different JWT token, there's no way you can copy a token from one person and try and use it on your system on another system and it will work, because they are separate and different keys, different secret keys. So with that being said, by the time you generate the token, you get a token which by calling the JWT sign, right? Then you are returning the user and the token. So all this is just to register. Let me now pause. Have I confused anybody yet? Silence means yes, so let's proceed. But if you are confused, please don't be scared. Just find time to go through this again. So the login, I'll just quickly go through the login and we'll stop here and we'll go to Postman and see how this works, okay? So for the login, I'm just explaining the code base one by one. Just this file, focus on this file, because this is where the actual logic happens. So somebody enters his email and password. First, we're going to check if that email exists in our system, which is line 42, right? If the email doesn't exist, now look at the message you are telling the person. We're not telling the person invalid email. If you are telling the person invalid email, you are simply telling the person, try more emails. You will finally get the one that exists. So this person can probably write a script that can run several times and the script gets an actual email that exists on your system. So instead, what are we telling the person? Invalid email or password. So we are not being specific, but we know it's a case of either invalid email or password. So the moment you are throwing something here, this code is already exiting. The only time this thing is going to come to line 46 or 47 is if a case of whereby the user actually exists. So this is only going to run if this user does not exist. That's why I'm saying this exclamation mark, not user. Maybe probably null or something. Okay. So the next thing you want to do is, if this user exists, you want to check if the password entered is valid. So now we have user.validate password. No, so now we're going to go to how are we validating password in this code. I'm going to click on control and click on validate password. It takes me to the function. What does it do? It does what we call by-script compare. So how does the by-script compare works? So by-script itself is a package. I think I'll explain. How do I explain this? No, I'll just explain this from this user model. So mind you, upon registration, the user is entering the password. And what you guys saw was we save everything. But on the user model, this is the user model, you call it entity. I know you guys are hearing a lot of terminology, but believe you me, with time it will begin to make sense. You can see something called before insert, before update. So before this thing is going to insert, into the DB, or before, even if you are making an update, as far as it's password related, what do? We'll get the password the user entered, which is this.password, right? Then we create what we call sorts. It's more of like encryptions and all. Bycrypt is used for encrypting. There's the one they call crypt, there's bycrypt, there's a lot of them out there. We're going to encrypt the password, passing a number as a sort, right? Then whatever we get, we're going to hash it and we save it as a password. So in summary, if you run this thing on your local and you go to the password column, you're not going to see the password you enter. You're going to see something encrypted, because you don't want a case whereby somebody just have access to your database and is seeing all everybody username and password. And imagine you're like people like me, not me, some people that we always have one username and one password for all the platform that are going to have a login or create accounts for. It's over for that person. So passwords are encrypted before being saved, right? So which is what this is doing. So in other words, this validate password cannot do normal screen comparison on the database, because already we have encrypted what is stored on the database. So that's why we have this bytecode compare that's going to compare two hash to make sure they're the same. I'm doing my best to make sure you guys get this, but I think this is 8:55 already. So that is basically the login. So mind you, don't forget that we are using await. Anyway, you are seeing await, like what the last tutor said, await is used for what? Asynchronous, meaning this particular function or stuff is going to take a while to run. It's asynchronous, and you want to make sure that you get response, because in most cases it returns what we call promise. You can research on that. But if you don't need the promise and you need an actual value, you need to what? Await. Await means wait till this thing is done and get the response before going to the next line. So the next line is going to check, is the password valid? If it's valid, we still pass the same error message that we're using when the email does not exist. Invalid what? Email or what? Or password. So hash is more of like encryption. Just see hash as an encryption. Just think of ways you can. I think in the past, I think one of the projects I did while I was in school was encryption algorithm. How somebody can enter something and you encrypt it in such a way that anybody seeing that message will not know what it is. That is simply what hashing is doing, encrypting. Okay. So if we confirm that the password is correct, what do? We generate a token using the user objects. We return the user and the token. So for those that don't have access to the repo, in the last slide we did, you can see the resource. You have the two links to the repo there. So without wasting much time, I will just go ahead and run this project, because you can find time to go through it. There's also something called middleware. I'll be talking on it while I run the project. So remember, like the questions some people ask, like, is it everything you are protecting? No. For all your endpoints, you just want to protect some certain endpoints. So for instance, you are not protecting login. If you say people must be logged in before they log in, how will they log in? Now you see that word tautology, login before login, authenticated before login. So things like login and registration does not need what? Authentication, right? The only thing you want to protect is probably viewing their profile, maybe creating a quote in this case, or editing a quote, as the case may be. So I'm going to go ahead and open terminal on this project and just simply run. So now, how do I know the command to run? Because I saw some complaints concerning people not knowing the commands to run. So if you go to your package.json, you should see how to start the project. So I see starts here, so I can simply do npm starts. So if you see any other command apart from start, you can do npm run, the name of the command. So depending on that. So now my project is running. Let's see. So now my project is running on ports. Take note of these ports. Localhost 4000. So I'm going to go to my post one, because I already have this all set up here because of timing. Okay. So I have registration. So for registration, I'm passing body I'm passing on the body section. I'm passing what email, username, password, and role. So let me just add something to this. Let's say one. Let's say one. So I'm going to send this. So when I send this, I get a success 201. So take note of your error code. Depending on the response you are giving should determine the code you want to return to the user. So it's left for you to send. It's not automatic. If you are creating something, please return 201. If you are making updates or just performing something that is successful, return a 200. Then if it's an error, depending on the kind of error, you can return any of the 400s, okay? So now look at it. I'm returning successful registration. Then look at the token here. What that simply means is if there is a call that requires token, I need to copy this token and place it. And let me quickly show you how to do that. I'm going to copy this. So there is a call here called get profile. You will see it in the project base. I'm going to clear what we have here. Then I'm going to press save and send. So normally this is how it looks like. Once you press send, I get no authorization header because this particular request requires me to pass an authentication because it involves seeing some details pertaining to the user. Okay, so what I will do is go to authorization. I'm going to, so there are various types of authorization. You see the no basic auth, depending on what you are doing. But what we have used so far in JWT, you literally use what bearer token. All you need to do is to come here and put the token here. Then you send. Now you can see the details. User retrieved successfully. So I'm getting now the email and the username. So there are stuff you don't want to return anytime a user login, like things like password. So ensure you hide you prevent the return of sensitive data, especially like passwords. So I'm going to stop the class here because the code base is a lot, but please, there's a lot of comments on that code base to make it easy for you to go through. It might be scary as of the first time you go through it, but just find time. It's easy. Programming, anybody telling you programming is difficult is a lie. Most people that are saying programming is difficult, probably they are not the patient type. So you have to be patient with it and give it time. So I will just take questions for like 2 minutes, then I will end the class. With that being said, for next week, we won't be having any class on Friday. Our next class will be Upper Tuesday. Okay. So, is there any question? Is there any question? Is there any question? So I'll be going to my slide a bit. I'm not presenting anything again. So I'll be looking at the questions now to see if there's any questions that is pertaining what I've done so far. Please, can you direct me on how to implement refresh tokens? Please don't start killing yourself over that. When you're doing refresh tokens, it's when you're setting up systems that you want to do like OAuth. And please, for now, I'm not sure if something you made. For now, I advise you focus on tokens, GWT tokens, and all. So if you are doing things like refresh tokens, more probably you want to give external service access to your app. You want them to be able to do something via your app. That's when you need to do something like OAuth. And I think that is next level stuff. So take your time. But if you want to give yourself a challenge on doing that, you can go ahead and refresh on that. Okay. So is there any other question? Are cookies used in authentication and authorization? So you use cookies more of if you want to store more of authentication. Authorizations in most cases are based on privileges that have been set on that particular user. For instance, now returning this user, I've already specified that this user is either a normal user or an admin. That is the authorization in this case. So based on that, I can determine what the user should be able to do. For instance, I will not allow this user delete any of the codes, except the user is what and an admin user. Okay. What is the shortcut for comments? Me, I don't know. I will not teach you any shortcuts. Do it long hard way. Get used to it. Sorry, yeah. Are we gonna do group projects or individual projects? You get to know that by next week. By next week, you get to know that. Okay. Is there any question before I end the class? I will take maybe. There is no class on Saturday. Oh, please have conscience. We have class. The next class is coming up on Tuesday. Okay. See, they're already teaching them shortcuts for comments. No problem. It's fine. Who am I? So, is there any other question before I please end this class? Because this class had lasted 4 minutes extra. Is there any question? If no question, I don't know. It's my bad habits. It's choice. I feel shortcuts might make you get lazy, but it also makes you work faster, sure. So it's left to you. So for your next class, you'll be doing DevOps and continuous integration. You learn to push the stuff we have done so far. So with that being said, I'll call this close this class. It was nice having everyone here. I hope you continue to push to learn more on your own. So have a good night's rest from this side of my world. Thank you everyone and have a nice night. Bye.